All right, welcome. It is February 21st, and it's time for the weekly rundown of things that I've been talking about and covering during the week. I'm going to have a couple of big updates coming out later today that I'm not going to talk about. So check back later today. But let's get into what kind of stuff I covered in the last week, stuff coming up, and what I think is important. Also, if you make any comments in the chat, I will try to respond to those comments at the end because I'm not good at following along while talking. All right, so let's get into it. Here are the things that I want to talk about today. There are really uh, uh, this list of, I think it's six things. The Milford Exempted Village School District investigation related to the women's wrestling program. Congressman David Taylor, Alex Schaefer in his run for commissioner in Adams County, Aaron Haslam, Adams County prosecutor, license plate cover-up, the good name of the Claremont GOP, and data centers. But I want to maybe on a positive note, talk about my first and second conversation with Dan Sarbuck, the general manager of the Brown County Rural Water Association. Then I want to talk about things going forward and look real quick at the Claremont Sun at the end. I like the Claremont Sun is absolutely terrible, and I like to highlight how terrible it is on a weekly basis. Okay, so let's get into it, and I'm going to kind of just run through a couple of these things kind of in order. So the first thing that I want to hit on is the Milford Exempted Village School District wrestling program, where there were allegations that basically two former coaches, had really the extent of the allegations of any substance were that they had come into possession of an inappropriate photo or photos of a woman or women on the team, or girl or girls, depending on how you say it. That's basically it. And it shared them or showed them to another coach, to a third coach, and two other coaches. And that's the crux of it. But it turns out that the Milford Police Department, the Miami Township Police Department, did not record their interview with Tony Brothers, one of the two suspects that was investigated, and did not do anything to get anything on the record from Jason Babinek, the other suspect. Now, by the way, both of those people have outed themselves as suspects. Tony Brothers, back when they closed the report, he put a post out about how he'd been a suspect and how he'd been cleared. And Jason Babinek, in a WXIX interview, brought up that he was one of the two suspects. So I put out a thing on this because it is just unbelievable to me. Let's play just a second of this here. It's February 20th, 2026, and I think I have a little bit of a bombshell update related to the Milford women's wrestling program and the Miami Township Police Department investigation, which was report 25-3800. So the report, which I got some time ago, was also accompanied by a 23-page document that... Okay, so there was a police report, which is that first image, but there was these investigative summary that when I had requested the police report, I didn't get, but I got later, and it, I think, outlines 14 different interviews, but they never recorded the interview with either. There was no interview with Babinek, effectively, and they never recorded the interview with Brothers, and there appears to be, theoretically, a long interview with the assistant superintendent of the schools that was never recorded either. Okay, so the whole thing is just, I mean, if you want to not have people be suspicious of that you are a crooked police department, this is not the way you do an investigation. And the investigation is, in theory, still ongoing, as far as I know. Why didn't they ever clean this stuff up? Why didn't they clean this stuff up? Especially when you consider that they also had an issue also at Milford Schools with Andrew Bobb, who was kind of cleared and let off by Miami Township Police and the Claremont County prosecutor, and then later was convicted of violating a protection order and I think one other thing. So you have a pattern of this. You have a pattern of bad police work. By the way, that bad police work is unfair to any victims or potential victims. it's also very unfair to any suspects because the fact that they didn't record the brother's interview and never did any really work with Babinec is unfair to them. It is unfair to them because if you're going to be investigated, you'd like to be cleared in a way that is convincing and compelling, not that looks suspicious because of the behavior. So, by the way, on Babinec, based on the documents, had asked questions that it appears that the Miami Township, based on their reports, they never asked any written questions to him. So that's the first thing. The Miami Township Police Department in this Milford Exempted Village School District scandal of allegations, all involving one coach making allegations relating to other coaches that were investigated by the authorities. As you're well aware, I'm being sued by each of the former coaches that were suspects. Okay. But I'm going to continue when I can get information or investigation. I'm going to continue to report on these things. Okay. So that's the first thing. So the second thing I had on my list to hit on is Congressman Dave Taylor. So I'm going to pop this up here just for a second. Congressman Dave Taylor. Congressman Dave Taylor is, I gave the guy, I do not generally give people the benefit of the doubt. I gave this guy the benefit of the doubt, and it was a mistake to give him the benefit of the doubt. I've never seen such a putz sellout. Just as a side, we live in the most red district in the state of Ohio. So our congressional rep, as a conservative Republican, should be a fighter because they're in a district where they can fight and not have a high risk of ever getting kicked out of office because it's such a red district. And what does David Taylor do? Well, he's like a Where's Waldo picture, okay? Data Center Dave does not show up anywhere, and he does everything. He won't do interviews with any legitimate press. He'll do interviews with Brian Thomas, who's a joke, but he won't do interviews with any legitimate press, and he just hides. And so let's look at the kind of stuff that he posts, though, on his Facebook. Okay. And you keep going down right now with the tariffs, with Trump, with Iran, with all these things. And what is our congressman posting about? The firebrand that is Dave Taylor. Well, look at, he went to the county engineer's office in Adams County. He's having Chris Stratton, the sheriff who was afraid to charge Greg Simpson. Maybe he can hold up a picture of Greg Simpson. Chris Stratton can while he is sitting in the gallery. Chris Stratton is such a disappointment. I thought he would be a big improvement over Leahy in terms of fighting for clean and clear and transparent governance and holding people accountable. But I think he's afraid of the establishment way more than Leahy was. So he's become more of a kind of a shadow. He's basically any accountability of the political system. He's going to be, kissing ass at Dave Taylor. That's what he does now. Okay, so then you've got, he's at some small business. Here he is at the an NGO, Convention and Visitors Bureau in Adams County. Here he is at Ohio Valley Technical Center, another government thing. Okay, here he is at Holzer Health Systems Leadership. So you notice something here. Our congressman is afraid to be among regular people. He only does controlled events with people that are going to kiss his you-know-what. That's our congressman, Dave Taylor, okay? VA, went to the VA center. So people that are all sucking at the tit, I'm not against veterans. I'm not saying that, okay? But these are all organizations that need government funding. So he's like he comes there in these safe environments. They kiss his ass, give him a donut, but he will not come to any public meetings where he could be asked any real questions. And it is so disappointing. And he is just a pathetic disgrace. I thought Winstrup was, Winstrup had the situation is that he was in a purple district, and Winstrup could theoretically be beat and lose his seat. So he had to, do a certain line. Taylor's not in that position. But you see, it's just fluff, nonsense. He gets rid of anybody on his staff, as far as I can tell, who has any local connection, largely. He goes, he's in bed already, gets Shabbat's people in there, what have you. It's just sad. But it's somewhat predictable for our area where especially when it's a Claremont County person. But that's Congressman David Taylor. So what's the next thing that I wanted to talk about? Alex Schaefer in Adams County. Okay, so I put out a video about Alex Schaefer's run for commissioner in Adams County. And let's just play the very beginning of that video. So you can literally walk from Alex Schaefer's fake apartment to Aaron Haslam's fake apartment super quick. So makes it kind of interesting, doesn't it, here in Adams County. I'm standing here at 618 Maple. Okay, so here's the deal. So Alex, the whole thing about Alex running for commissioner was supposed to be a joke. So the joke was that he was going to do basically the same thing as Aaron Haslam, have a fake residence, and then be a complete outsider, fake residence, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then you had the colorful character of Kelly Jones, on the other side of that equation. So what happened, though, is Alex continually refused to get an apartment. So I and others were like, well, if you're going to pull this off, you got to have a fake apartment just like Haslam. So what Alex did is he registered at uninhabitable property that he didn't even own. And no problem. There's no integrity in the voter rolls in Adams County for sure. So he does that. Now he has switched to this place where he's trying to close on it, which is a 2-apartment unit, but he doesn't live there. And it's just a mockery. And I'm waiting for it's still at the Supreme Court, the Haslam thing. And I just want to see if the Supreme Court's going to get down with making a complete mockery of any residency requirements. Now, our forefathers fought a revolution over the idea of that you had to be have self-representation, that from among the people, because remember, the king would appoint people to represent areas maybe that wasn't even in them, that was in England. We fought a civil war over that, but our elected leaders don't care about that. What's so funny is it's like they get this bug where what was a joke becomes serious, and Alex believes now he's the best person to represent Adams County, even when he doesn't live there. What does that say about what does that say that one is saying about the people of Adams County? So any event, so that is the situation. Now, what happened? How did the joke become what it is now? Well, what happened was Alex went to the Adams County GOP Central Committee meeting, and it was starting before that. But basically, the people that embraced the crooked nature of Aaron Haslam's residence embraced Alex. They don't like Kelly Jones. They want to get Kelly Jones out. So no problem for them to embrace. So Ty Pell and Aaron Haslam became Alex's buddies, basically. And it wasn't that long ago, I had a call with Alex. I was driving, and he's defending Aaron Haslam. Aaron's a pretty good guy, and we don't have somebody here that could do the job. Okay, so talk about drinking the Kool-Aid instantaneously. That is what happened with Alex. So that is the kind of Alex Jones update, Alex Schaefer update. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the races, these commissioner races across the 3 counties that I tend to cover, Brown, Adams, and Claremont, before we get to the end of this session. All right, so let's go back and see where we're at. Then the next thing on here is the Aaron Haslam plate cover-up. And this is another one that is just to let you know that the bullshit speeches of judges about how this government's for you, that is just bullshit, okay? That these elected people go by a different set of rules. They don't have to follow the law. They get protected. They come up with asinine excuses. And here is Aaron Haslam on his not having a proper license plate. He ripped the county sticker off of his license plate because he doesn't really live in Adams County. So people were making fun of him during his campaign that he was driving a vehicle that had a Hamilton County sticker on it when he's running for prosecutor in Adams County. So let's play just a little bit of this at the beginning on the license plate gate for Aaron Haslam, and then I'll talk about a little more. Name is why she probably really didn't want to turn over the registration, because On January 2nd, Alex Schaefer ran it and got the public record. It's a public record from the DMV. I, on January 20th, got the public record, and it shows both by VIN and by plate number, the truck doesn't have a valid registration. It's February 17th, and I'm sitting in front. So here's the deal on this one so Aaron wouldn't put the correct sticker on his vehicle. He pulled the sticker off. But I ran, and then I filed a private citizen affidavit. Of course, they covered it up. They protected him. Of course, Gabbard gave his big speech. What a fraud. What a fraud. Like a character out of, he likes to put bullshit about, Gabbard likes to put bullshit about the Rolling Stones in his entry. You can go watch some of my videos on that, but he's much more like the character in Pink Floyd The Wall that is the judge. Okay, he's much more like that, given the pompous, arrogant speeches that disconnect from the actual behavior. So what actually, going on here, let's break it down. So, the case got assigned to Pike County prosecutor, a complete zero. Matthew Brady got assigned the case, did nothing. I started filing some other stuff to get things done. Aaron Haslam's private counsel, Leslie Giz, whatever her name is, they just make shit up. So after I start bitching and moaning more about Brady not doing anything, he does two things. One is he runs a bunch of things where they didn't give somebody a ticket for a plate issue, and then claims, well, we wouldn't have charged this issue in Adams County, in Pike County, so we shouldn't have charged it here. And then he interacts with this Leslie Giz, whatever her name is, and basically just whitewashes everything. And she acts like, oh, we can't actually look at the registration because, Chris Hicks is a monster, a relentless monster, and he's going to, well, one of the reasons they can't look at the registration is because Alex ran it on January 2nd. I ran it on January 20th, and it shows the truck wasn't registered. The truck doesn't have a valid registration. So how did he even get a sticker? Or is the DMV in Columbus, their records are screwed up or something? But, what kind of investigation is done where this Mike Davis is the prosecutor in Pike County and Matthew Brady was assigned to the case? What kind of investigation is it on a valid license plate where you don't run the plate? That just says it all about a totally corrupt, dysfunctional system in which there are different rules for insiders than there are for you and me. I guarantee if I violate, think about yourself. If I violated this, I'd probably be in prison right now. They throw the book at me. But when it's Aaron Haslam, he is protected by the system. And what's so scary about it is I think Gabbard, I think he knows Aaron Haslam's a piece of what. These people know that this is wrong, but they're too afraid to do the right thing because they need their positions. And that's like, I had a friend, very close friend, or have a very close friend who tells me that that's bad. That idea that you won't do the right thing because you want to protect your own self from any exposure to risk, like that you might not be a judge or something. And you know who the friend is that told me that? I'll tell you. His name's Jesus. And all these people go around acting like they're Christians, but they won't take any risk to do the right thing. And it's pathetic. And so this whole thing with Aaron Haslam's plate, it's going to keep going on because I'm going to keep pressing on this, and maybe I'll file something else. The system it's just an absolute joke what the system does, but it served its purpose of exposing that Judge Gabbard is a fraud. The system is oriented towards protecting people like Aaron Haslam, and we, the people, don't matter to any of these people. They have no character. So remember, most of these people, if they tell you they're conservative, whatever, that's only opportunistic. They would be whatever they need to be to have their little fiefdoms of power. And that's what it's about. And they protect each other, and they view us as basically a lesser form of life than that. Okay. So we're back to, that's the Haslam plate cover up. The next thing, I'm going to jump over to Claremont County. So jump from Adams, Brown, Claremont. Okay. And then we're going to go to Brown on the data centers. So Claremont County, the GOP in Claremont County is, unique. And they have some of the people that have a lot of bad character. But they were going to start a committee to protect the good name of the Claremont GOP. And I put out a video. This is from August. when this video, when they were going to do this, they had two people, Larry Heller, who's on the Board of Elections, who I have a very low opinion of, and George Patterson, who's an attorney and a judge and won't answer questions. Another attorney told me that George Patterson had falsified evidence or altered evidence, and I've asked George Patterson, and he won't answer the questions. He would, so I'd love to have to do an interview about it, but he just ignores me. But anyway, so they had this. We're going to start this committee to protect the good name. This was back in August, and then I highlighted. Let's see if I can hit on one of them. I highlighted all kind of things that were, contrary to the good name that they can go investigate about themselves. And let's see. Okay, so let's pick one here. Let's see what this one is. Number 3.
And State Central Committee member threatening my son and me.
You're purposely putting little seeds out there, so information. Don't interrupt me. Let me finish. You're purposely putting information out there. So it gets back to Chris Hicks. What you heard is a lie. What do you want from me? Why are you doing this?
So that's one. That's Greg Simpson, our current State Central Committee member, who was accused by John Becker of offering a $50,000 bribe, who threatened my son and me, who Chris Stratton, the sheriff, investigated and wanted him charged, but our crooked prosecutor in Claremont County, Mark DeCalvey, wouldn't charge him. And Chris Stratton, of course, bent over. I mean, that's what he does, is that I think Chris Stratton is afraid of the system, because if he doesn't bend over and bow down to the insider system, then they will kick him out of office at the next election. And so that's what's so unfortunate about that situation. But there's a whole set of these things in here. Let's see I don't even remember what they were, but let's see what number 4 was.
Thing that the committee, this new committee about the good name, can get into is Greg Carson, who's a former executive in the Claremont GOP, now deceased.
Okay, so there was a guy, Greg Carson, who was a executive in the Claremont GOP, and he was also the CFO for Claremont Senior Services. He was in an embezzlement scheme. It was covered up. They never did get restitution back from his family. These are you can go watch this video. I'll put the link out there. But the number
the committee
of scandals,
and the prosecutor, they can investigate how it could hurt the good name of the party that Mark DeCalvey had a person he was supposedly investigating, a bad officer.
She says this video shows Young pulling her.
So this was a situation where a bad cop, Shane Olson, that now works in Brown County, was sitting. He's sitting at the table there. If you look, the girl is there. You can see the girl, and he's sitting at the table. And when Jim Young got in Dutch for harassing women and for a bunch of other stuff, he said that at this event at the Frisch's in Batavia, he didn't see anything. But if I were to play this a little more, you'll see him laughing as the Jim Young is pulling the hair of this woman. So Mark DeCalvey protected Shane Olson, but Shane Olson was doing a remodeling project for Mark DeCalvey. It's typical Claremont County, type of stuff. Crooked as hell, as far as I can tell. Now, I did a piece because they started I think they were trying to do something at the Claremont GOP meeting this week, which was on February 18th, to have a vote on a policy that if anybody on the Central Committee were critical of the party or the Central Committee in any way, they would be like what I was, suspended, because these guys are emboldened. It's a constant witch hunt. It's like a communist Politburo. They don't believe in the First Amendment. And so they were trying to institute a policy where any criticism of the Claremont GOP would be by any member of the Claremont GOP would result in them basically being suspended or outed from the committee, regardless of whether they were elected. So what they basically do is set up, and this is what's so crooked and scumbag about all of it, they basically set up a situation in which even if the voters elect people like me who are outsiders who want reform, they get I got suspended. I'm not allowed to vote. I'm not allowed to do this. That doesn't matter what the voters think. So these guys are such frauds, such phonies. They don't like I say again, if somebody tells you that's involved in politics that they're conservative or not something, is okay, they might be, but never trust them. The vast majority of these people are just say what they think will get them elected or get them accepted, and they would say the opposite if they needed to for political expediency. Okay. almost to the end of this, and then we'll get to the things coming up here. The last thing that I had on my main list of stuff I covered this week is Dan Sarbuck, the general manager of Brown County Rural Water Association. And so there's two things that happened with Dan. One is this, and I'll play a little bit where I was following up on things about water tanks and non-disclosures with Dan and the Brown County Rural Water Association that tie back to this Mount Orb data project. And this is me encountering him at his house because I do the shoe leather journalism and knock on people's doors to ask them questions. You may or may not like that, but that's the way journalism used to be in the old days. That was like very normal to try to get the story, to go to the people that you're trying to talk to and knock their door and see if they'll talk to you.
I just want to ask you questions about your role. You think this is a good look for you? You think this is a good look for you?
I'm wondering
out
if
here
it's
acting like a jackass. I think it's a fine look.
Get the hell out of here.
There was a unique interest on the part of Kelly Cole.
Okay, so that was number one with Dan. And then Dan and I later did, just a few days ago, did an interview. And here's part of that.
Yes.
Starbuck. Okay, so to me, I'm saying it right. Okay, maybe not to you.
You got it.
But he is the general manager of Brown County Rural Water Association. I appreciate after we had a not positive encounter over the weekend that Dan offered to do a little talk with me. Okay, so so Dan Sarbuck, I just want to say good on Dan Sarbuck. So now we're joking about it. We're going to get together next Valentine's Day. He's told me what kind of adult beverage he likes. It happens to be something that we stock at the Hicks Pub at my house, so I can head out to his place next Valentine's Day with the adult beverage that he likes. But Dan, I encountered him on the porch, and he even told me then later in the second interview that as soon as he came back in, he mistook me for somebody else. So he was telling me how I didn't respond to his email, I didn't do what he said, and then he went back in the house and he told me in the later interview that his wife immediately told him, like, that's not Paul Riley. He mistook me for Paul Riley. That's Chris Hicks. And he was like, I knew then I basically effed up, that he had the wrong person, and he was accusing me of stuff that was related to Paul Riley. And so, but, Dan did a long interview with me. We can get into he didn't tell me everything, but he seemed very transparent, but he's under a NDA like these other people are. And so that's not good necessarily, although he would maintain Brown County Rural Water Association as a private entity. But he was more forthcoming. It's so funny that what's his name, Mike Boyd, the CFO for Mount Orab, and Dan Sarbuck, you talk to each of them and they come off like they're not trying to lie up, down, left, and center right to you, like Joe Hauser and Rick Ecke, the solicitor, come off like they're just lying every word out of their mouth, or Kelly Cole. These guys come off as relatively authentic individuals that they might not be telling you everything, but it doesn't seem like they're lying to you at all times. So good on Dan for doing an interview with me after our Valentine's Day encounter on his porch. So I appreciate him talking. He seems like a fun guy. So I would actually look forward to having an adult beverage with Dan. He seems like a fun, nice guy, and good on him for doing an interview with me and admitting to that he had mistook me for somebody else, and so on and so forth. All right. So what are we down to here? Let's talk about things coming up in the future here. Let me throw it back up here. So I'm trying to get some candidate forums aligned, and I'm just starting to reach out on facilities and so forth. So the Watchdog Wire is going to try to do some candidate forums. And I've been involved in a lot of candidate forums and related to the Union Township Republican Central Committee. And I'll tell you exactly the way an excellent candidate forum works is you have the two candidates. When people, by the way, they're most fun to have them at a place where you can get food and drink. It makes it a lot more fun if you can get a beer or Coke or a snack while you're there watching the candidate forum. Okay. The second thing is what works really well for candidate forums is that you have the people that show up write their questions down on like index cards. And then you have a couple of people sort all the questions into topics. So it makes it logical. Like these are all on the data center. These are all on this. So that when you go, and then you have a moderator, and I'd be the moderator, go through the questions. So the moderator doesn't make up any of the questions. No questions get thrown out. The moderator has the right to kind of combine questions. If there's 3 questions that are all basically the same, read off all 3. You got 3 questions here about the data center, the NDAs. Like, here's question 1, 2, 3. Now you guys respond. So you let then the candidates have opening statements. You try to get them to talk about a platform. What are they actually going to do? Not just who are they. Then you do the questions. You alternate who goes first and second. They get like a minute or 2 to answer the questions. And once you get through all the questions, you close it out. Sometimes there have been where there's a little extra time. And generally, that whole approach I just described creates a very positive mood, a very good atmosphere, because the people writing questions out on cards means you get real questions versus a lot of times otherwise. And I've probably been guilty of this too. When you call people in the audience, they tend to give a speech, and somewhere in the speech is a question. And I try to make sure that in a candidate forum, we focus on the questions. What are the actual questions you have for these candidates, not people giving their own opinion speeches from the floor, nor the moderator giving an opinion speech. So that writing the questions down. So sometimes by the end, it's created such a good mood and such a good atmosphere and so much good information that then if there's a little extra time, we might do open questions from the floor. But at that point in time, people tend to get it, that it's not about giving speeches. It's about asking questions that can be informative and helpful. And then you have closing statements, and that's basically the format. So I'm going to try to, with the Watchdog Wire, get a couple of these going in a couple of different races. And I'm hopeful. The first one I've started working on is Brown County, and I've started to work on Adams County a little bit in terms of a venue. And we'll see if the candidates agree or not. I know Paul Riley has already agreed. Fussberger has not responded. And I'm going to reach out to, in Brown County, Zach Thatcher and Greg Lang. I just got their contact information to see if they'll participate in a Watchdog Wire candidate forum. The other thing going on is I did file a protest against Claire Corcoran's petitions in Claremont County. And one of the pages was it should be tossed. I don't think that would kick her off the ballot, but I'm not sure the situation of the other pages. But the page that should be tossed was done by her husband, Jeff Corcoran, under penalty of election falsification. And I have some experience with it. It's very similar to how David Ubel got out of public life because he got kicked out of a commissioner race for basically fraud involving his petitions. Much worse than what Mr. Corcoran did, but Mr. Corcoran is an attorney and he was the head of the Central Committee. He knows the law. He knows the law. He just doesn't think he's accountable to the law. That's the point of a lot of these insiders. They don't think that they are accountable to the law. Okay. All right. So let's go back here and look at the Claremont Sun to end this up. I didn't even download it. Okay. Because it's so, the funny part is you got some article from Megan Alley, the Claremont Sun, that's on what's going to be on the ballot. Okay. And there's a lot of instructions like how to do letters to the editor, which nobody will actually do because nobody reads the Claremont Sun. Okay. And then you have an article not from Claremont County. So the best news coverage ever in the Claremont Sun is from other counties that have Champion Media Group papers. So this is an article actually from Brown County about Mount Orab. And that's the whole rest of the news section of this paper is submitted content. Okay. A thing about getting vaccinations from the Claremont County Public Health, something from the Farm Bureau. The same guy, John Plasovic, writes multiple editorials every week that are the same claptrap VA stuff. I'm not against that VA. I don't want to, but I don't know that we need 18 million editorials about the VA and like 2 editorials a week in the Claremont Sun about the VA. When they never have editorials or they never have anything about any actual relevant things like the Milford Exempted Village School District investigation and situation. And then you have some content that's irrelevant to our area that are, typically people that have nothing to do with our area where they just throw it in there, these contributing columnists. And then you have the sports section. So that's the entire, so think about Claremont County. I think if you put Adams County and Brown County together, okay, and you'd almost have to, it'd be less than triple, I think, but more than double, less than triple. That's how much bigger Claremont County alone is. And this is the newspaper for Claremont County. It's just utterly sad and utterly pathetic. All right. Okay. So that's everything I wanted to cover. And I'm going to have some new content today, but I'm going to look to see if anybody had any comments that I want to respond to. I like to respond to comments. Leslie, this is about Leslie Giz or Jiz, was a judge. She's not conservative. She's a state, their statist. If she was conservative, she would be about Aaron Haslam just being accountable. And immediately upon when there was that original court hearing about his plate, they just would have admitted it right then. Okay, like a man. But Aaron Haslam's not a man. He's a boy. He's a boy in a grown-up man where he's never. It seems to me he's always been protected in his life, so he's never had to be accountable to anything. Okay. Okay, so Robin was probably at the meeting. I haven't talked to Robin, but she says this is relating to the Claremont GOP policy, witch hunt policy. The executives claim they're doing a better review of this conduct rule, and it will be introduced in the future. By the way, everything in the Claremont GOP is tops down. A very small group of people, the executives, basically run the place, and everybody else is a chair moistener. And Robin is not on the committee, but she attends the meetings regularly. But most of the people on the committee don't show up. So a very small percentage of the people ever show up. And the ones that show up are largely chair moisteners. Okay. They just do whatever they're supposed to do. And they apparently don't have a lot of other stuff going on. And they don't really fight or stand for anything. One of the rules is any member cannot speak or post anything online critical. That's right. So I was effectively, this was one of the basis for my suspension, was that I was critical by putting out the truth. One of the truths the thing that really put it over the line was that I put out that Michael Logue was actually supported by a Hamilton County sugar daddy that was the primary funder of his campaign. And that was 100% true, but you're not supposed to let people know that. You're supposed to keep that secret. Okay. And so that's it. So I think that's all. There's only a few comments here. So, hey, we need more comments. I need some Lemanuel Scales followers to come on here and question me, and I'll have a Lemanuel Scales update later today or tomorrow. All right. So that is the gist. That's the rundown for the Watchdog Wire on February 21st. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully some good information for you, and appreciate you following the Watchdog Wire. We went over 33,000 followers on the Watchdog Wire. So tell your friends and feel free to share Watchdog Wire content to other people so that we can get more real news coverage within our area of Adams, Claremont, and Brown County, focused on some of the, I can't focus on a lot, but hopefully I can focus on some things that are important to the community and would help move the community